Okay, welcome back to My Mom's Basement. It is a From the Top Rope edition of My Mom's Basement, promoting WWE Battlegrounds out now, out Friday, September 18th. This is an interview that myself and Jared Carabas thought we would never get. We thought this
Yeah,
would never happen, but it's happening. The
that was
There it
Phenom,
is.
the Dead Man, the Undertaker is joining us right now. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic. What should we call you? Is it Undertaker? Is that fine by you?
No, man. We're friends now. You call me Taker.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Everybody
Yeah.
calls me Taker.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
I
All right,
love
Taker.
that.
Taker, Dead Man. It just depends. Most people prefer Taker. It's
I
quick
like
and easy.
Taker.
Yeah.
I like Taker. If we're on that
Yeah.
friendship level now, I'm taking it. Talking about the
Yeah.
video game that's out now, has it been crazier seeing yourself evolve as a video game character from like an 8-bit character to now a photorealistic version of The Undertaker, or as an action figure?
You know what? Yeah, the action figures were cool, but to realize where we started in the video game process was nuts. It used to take a 2 or 3 day stint in a studio, green screens, getting hooked up to cables, and going through all of our move set to basically nowadays, they put you in a wall of cameras and they get every possible angle of you, and it's just amazing how far the process has come through my 30 years. It's been really it's a lot better product, and it's a lot less time consuming on my end. And then they always, obviously they make you look a little better than what you do, so that's a bonus. They don't show quite as many miles as the real thing does.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this is an honor for the both of us. Like I said, we never thought this would happen, mostly because for a long time you were the guy that would never do the interviews. You were the wrestler that would, keep kayfabe, as they say, and you were the dead man for everybody. Did you
Right.
have it set in your mind, though, through the last few years of your life, which we saw through the last ride, that you kind of knew retirement was looming? Did you know that once you were retired, you were going to break kayfabe and you were going to be the one to tell the story of your career by yourself now?
I really didn't. I didn't really envision it, or I didn't have that as a goal. But through the process of making the docuseries, obviously you just with my the narration and everything, you get a lot of that. And as we went through the process, it became easier, because I was really reluctant at first, even though it was my idea to have the cameras following me and all that. There was times where I'd start chewing guys out, like, "Why are you following me with this damn camera?" You ask us to. Yeah, okay, all right, yeah, I did ask you to do. Okay, my bad. So it was a process for me to get used to doing that, and then now it's just kind of rolled into, people are enthralled by, now that I've lifted the curtain and started letting people in. There's a lot of questions for 30. For people who've been fans for 30 years. There's a lot of questions, and but it was never my original intent. It just kind of happened through the process.
Yeah. So I guess that's where like the last ride left me wanting more, even though there was like a conclusion to that chapter. It was almost like you put out a book, but like the first 20 chapters were just missing. You're like, yeah, you can read the end. Like, that's fine. Like, if you want to do that. Because one thing that I noticed, and I marked out huge for this, like, I've been waiting 31 years for this moment. I'm a diehard Kane fan.
Right.
In the last ride, that was the first time I've ever seen Kane unmasked from like the 90s. Like, there was like a quick little clip, like you're walking by him in the hallway and he's unmasked. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I've never, like, there's no pictures, there's no videos. Right. So I guess what I'm asking now is there enough footage from those missing chapters to go back and complete the whole thing? Like, is there another docuseries in the future?
I would imagine that we would do something down the line, and it would probably done. I would imagine outside of WWE studios. I would think that an HBO or A&E would want to do something down the road, because there's 27 more years to cover.
Yeah.
I mean, we went back here and there, but the history of that character, a lot of it wasn't touched. It was the last ride. It was the final part of the career, and coming to grips with my mortality. And so, yeah, I would expect somewhere down the line, nothing really concrete yet, but I would imagine we would do something that would hit that front end of the career, in the middle, most of the end. I mean, there's a lot of material, and then there's a lot of material that didn't get touched on, outside of the ring. My relationship with the guys that I was close with, the BSK Nation. I mean, there's so much stuff there. So yeah, I would imagine it'll all come out eventually.
Yeah, like that's the type of stuff that people are interested in. I mean, like, so for me, I've been a wrestling fan since '97, so that covers a lot of years of your career. So like, you were the constant, like you were the guy that was always there. And when guys were jumping ship to WCW, you kind of just planted your flag. You're like, I'm staying right here. I'm building my legacy here, and it wasn't about money for you. And I think with wrestling, for me as an adult now, I'm way more drawn to the real life stories. Like, I'm way more drawn to, like, how did that stuff go down? Like, because you were, like, again, like you being the constant, like the story of you being in the background with like the Montreal screw job, like you were in the back there, like those stories, like your angle of things that happen in wrestling have gone untold. And like, we need that. Like, we need to hear those stories.
Yeah, it is. I think, kind of across the board, those kind of stories are at this point are more compelling. There's so much content, live content, you get all you want, but to hear the ins and outs of what was going on, and I think that is much more compelling and movie of the week kind of stuff. That doesn't outdate you a little bit. But.
So you've been there throughout the entire, like Jared said, through multiple generations. You've really seen superstars come and go. You've seen guys that were fans
come back and go again.
And back and go again. Guys that were fans of yours come up and probably compete against you at some point. How do you feel about the mentality as far as old school versus new school match calling? We hear a lot of veterans talk all the time about, we could go out there, not call anything in the back and call it all in the ring. But do you feel that when the business started to evolve the other way, matches started getting a lot better? Do you think you could produce an epic, like one of your matches against Shawn Michaels or the Hell in a Cell against Triple H? Let's go out there and call it in the ring. Do you think that it was a change for the better in the business?
Well, what you miss when you kind of call it on the fly is being able to feel things, because what happens is when guys will lay out a whole match, and in your mind's eye, it's like, oh man, this stuff is going to be great. And then when you go out there and you actually apply it, it's crickets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then they're lost because they don't know how to adapt. I think as long as I had a finish or a start of the match, a finish, and whatever the heat spot was, I'm pretty sure that I could, if I was working full time, because that plays into it. If I was a full-time guy and if I had those three things, I think I could still put on a match that, because I have, you listen to your audience, and then once you know that you have your audience, now you pull the strings, you're the puppet master.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of, that's why I still tell guys to this day in the live events, the non-televised live events, try and do it, try and do it that way, because you never know, you never understand, you never know what's going to happen. You never know when there's going to be some kind of satellite go down and you got to fill time, or somebody else's match ends quickly, and you've put together a 5-minute match and now all of a sudden you've got 15.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always tell guys to try and do that. You may never have to use it, but if you do, you're going to want that experience to draw from.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have in the back pocket.
Yeah. And it basically, it all kind of changed when we started doing live TV, because you've got a certain amount of TV time. You've got put in your commercials. So guys had to hit their cues and they had to hit their marks really tight. So that's kind of how everything kind of started to change. And obviously our product has evolved into this huge juggernaut that it is. So, I can't sit back and be, the crusty old timer and say, you kids, you do it all wrong. I mean, it's just evolution. And, but I do think it's important that guys still try and call things on the fly.
Yeah. Yeah. Rob, you mentioned this earlier about, you and like the whole aspect of protecting kayfabe. Was that something during the course of your career where you were like, I kind of wish I could do, like TV shows and interviews and stuff like that, where I could just talk as like the guy behind the character? And also did other guys, cause I mean, like WWE, it's kind of like it's a grueling schedule where you're traveling a lot. You're doing these live shows, you're doing TV, you're doing pay-per-views. And then sometimes you got to wake up early and do all these media tours. Did anyone kind of like give you shit for not like having to do the media tours?
No, not really. They didn't give me shit. I mean, because they appreciated the effort that it took for me to protect.
Right.
And
like an entire wardrobe of black. Like I saw that on
yeah.
thing where you're like, yeah, like I live the character, like outside the ring. Like I just, here's my black t-shirt, my black pants, my black sunglasses, off I go.
Yep. And so I think they appreciated that. And my mindset was like, I'm living my dream here. So I didn't have aspirations of going to Hollywood and crossing over like that, which I got nothing against guys who do. I mean, jury's still out on whether it worked for Rock or not. I don't know. But
he's doing all right. He's doing all right.
Yeah, he's going to be all right.
I think he's got a GoFundMe for something. Yeah.
Something like that, he's a C-lister. But that was never I was living my dream and I was doing what I wanted to do. And I knew if I wanted to continue doing it, that's what I felt is like, I have to protect this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't be this guy. I didn't have to worry about social media and the internet so much early on, but I couldn't be this guy on the internet and then try and be this guy on TV. There was just too big a disconnect in the way I looked at things. And I understand, yes, we're sports entertainment and everybody understands things now. But for me, it was always bringing that air of authenticity to what you were seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to put in somebody's mind, good, bad, or indifferent, that dude is different,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what I did or what I was doing was different. And, not blinking and not doing, I mean, it was just all those things I thought about. Like, this is all part of the big picture of the character.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's, this, I never, like I said, I never thought we would get to this point where I'm talking to you guys and promoting, promoting 2K, WWE 2K Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
You'd asked me this 5 years ago and I would look like you had 6 heads, but that's where we're at. And I'm happy where I'm at now,
Yeah.
I really am. I still find sometimes I still put the guard up a little bit and I think I have to think about it. Like, okay, we're in a different place now,
mm-hmm.
But it's funny how many times I'll hear like, oh man, my childhood is ruined because I'm a human being, right? And
because you're not a dead zombie. Yeah,
and I'm not a dead zombie. Like, it's like, well, I'm sorry that your childhood is ruined, but most of you are out of childhood now. So, welcome to the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jared, speaking to the level of attention to detail you put into the character over the years, keeping the kayfabe and all that, it really worked and you evolved. And even you went into, the American Badass when things got tough with the Attitude Era, when that character maybe would seem a little hokey, if you will. I mean, even the Ministry stuff, though, worked because you were like a cult figure back then. And then
right.
It evolved into the American Badass. I think it really worked. And I have a nephew who's 6 years old. He's just getting into wrestling now. And you're his guy. Like, he goes back to the early 90s stuff. And
right.
He's like, this is my guy. When he plays the video game against my brother, his dad, he does handicap matches. 2 Undertakers, the old school and the new school, versus whoever his dad wants to be.
Ain't nobody beating that combination. Are you kidding me?
So it's like, even, all these years later, 30 years after your debut, you're still the guy that kids are gravitating towards, and kids are saying, whoa, look at that, he's the larger than life superhero. So I think it worked. Even looking back, like, I don't have to be the guy telling you it worked, you're the fucking Undertaker. But
Well, I appreciate it. You go,
it's
hey,
interesting for
you know
me
what?
to
I'm not
see,
above getting my ego stroked a little bit. I'm good.
Now, as an American Badass fan myself, was there any talks, and I'm sure you've been asked this a bunch because it was rumored at probably every WrestleMania you came back for the last 5 years. Were there any talks to bring that character back at any point?
No. Once I left the American Badass, I think everyone was really content with the hybrid version of the Undertaker. My style had changed where, I kept a lot of the elements of my in-ring work, just kind of geared towards that American Badass character, but I brought the origins of and the mystique of the Undertaker, was kind of the outward look. But no, it was kind of it didn't come up until this year, and it just dawned on me with the type of promos that AJ was cutting. I was like, well, there's really no way that I can bring the original Undertaker to this. It's become too personal. It's crossed too many lines. I mean, you're going to have to get you're going to have to get American Badass all grown up, and he's still being he's still got that evil side to him, but it's going to have to be a much more personal a much more personal approach to delivering that match. So that's kind of how we ended up American Badass 2.0, if you will.
Talk about marking out. When you rolled up on the motorcycle, I was going crazy. It's like, finally, he's got the bandana back on.
Yeah.
It was fun, man. I have to say, it was, and I had, at that point, I hadn't made the decision of not, whether I was going to work or what I was going to do post that, but man, it really felt good. And I was like thinking to myself, like, man, I got to run here if I want it, and it was cool. We were out, as they were setting up and doing the lighting and everything. I was taking that bike up and down the road, and people in the neighborhood, their lights were coming on, and I was like, man, this is fun, and it was. But I think regardless of what I do on camera moving forward, I'm pretty sure that's the persona that I'll continue to move forward.
Which is perfect, because it's a little bit of everything, like you said in the last ride. Like, you're taking pieces of every character that you've ever played and you're putting it all into one. So I think, the pandemic happens, WrestleMania has to, take a hard left over here, and you have the cinematic match with AJ Styles, which for you should be looking at that, and I'm sure you do, is like, holy shit, like this might have just bought me 10 more years. Like if you can, I'm sure it's like a grueling process, like when you're going through this, but I think immediately everyone thought, this could be an opening for, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this in the past, but an Undertaker and Sting cinematic match where, the fans have been asking for it. Like, I remember like having to Google this on like AOL.com back in like the 90s. Like, is the Undertaker and Sting, like, are they ever going to do this? Like, people have been asking for this since I was basically in middle school. Do you think, because of this newly discovered format, and now like you and AJ, you put it on the map, like that was something where it's like, if this goes great, now we can further down the line, there could be a bunch of these. If it doesn't, maybe we just one and done it. Has there been any talks? Like, has there been a situation where in the back of your mind, like, this is something that I want to do before it's all said and done?
I think it's pretty much all said and done. Obviously,
you don't believe,
no one believes me. My wife doesn't believe me.
I was just going to say, like, Michelle doesn't believe you either. Like, this is not.
She rolls her eyes at me at least twice a week on something, and I got another buddy. I got another buddy that's, I was actually in a golf tournament with him Monday, and they were putting food out and stuff like that, and I was like, nah, I don't want that. I want that. And all of a sudden he looks over at me, getting close to April, huh? Like, no, man. I tried to be I tried to be as definitive in that last episode. It was much more definitive until the big man saw it. And you know, he kind of put in the little question mark, maybe some possible way, but I don't foresee it happening, but
I'm sure you don't.
Never say never.
Listen, if it happens, just make sure we could be two druids that you like throw off a building.
Oh my
Crazy
God.
bumps for you. We don't even need to be on camera. Throw the black robe over us. It'd be an honor, sir.
It would be.
I'll keep that
a
in mind if it ever
prophecy.
comes to that. You know, hopefully, you know, like I said, I can stay here and play WWE 2K Battlegrounds with my daughter and get my head stomped that way. She's highly competitive and so yeah, she takes her fair shots at dad.
Yeah, I mean, but that's life before April, and then April rolls around, and I guess we'll see. But to the main part of the question, have you had conversations? Did you have conversations with Sting back in like the 90s, being like, hey, your character, what you're doing is pretty badass. What I've been doing for the last 10 years is pretty badass. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we got together? Like, were there conversations back then?
Not a one.
No.
You didn't even know him back then?
No, I knew him because I had a brief, you know, I was in WCW in '89, and I knew him there. And then I really didn't see him again until he came here.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really crazy. Just like
It
two
really
people
is.
that have evaded each other forever.
And then that's kind of, you know, obviously our audience, like, oh, well, you know, his character did this and your character did that. And I mean, that's where it really kind of started to steamroll once he came up here and did a few shots for us. But yeah, there were never like, we weren't calling each other and saying, hey man, you know, we got this, you know, super match, mega match kind of deal going on. And, you know, it just, you know, my schedule was always full of, you know, there was always guys waiting, you know, so, and maybe something that it will be kind of like, you know, what would have happened between Ali and Tyson, or, you know, just one of the things for the ages, like what would have happened?
Look at The Rock and Shawn Michaels, two guys that have never gotten in the ring together. It's crazy.
Exactly. So, you know, and I think, I mean, being completely honest, at this point, it would have been cool in the 90s. Even it would have been cool in the early 2000s. But, you know, there's a reason why, you know, the last ride came about, and you know, and I've called it a day. It's just like, although I have it here and I have it in my heart to do, my body doesn't cooperate with the other two, you know, factors in that. So it becomes really difficult, and I just don't want people to get a watered down version of that character. If I can't go out and do the things people expect me to do when I'm in the ring, and I really flirted with that as long as I did work, you know, that's not what I want. I want people to remember, you know, I want them to remember the 90s, and I want them to remember that American Badass and the return, you know, all those strong, the WrestleMania matches with, you know, with Edge and Batista and Triple H and Shawn, of course. You know, I want all
even
those
CM
matches.
Punk up to 29, like up to
Punk.
Just an incredible. That's a classic.
How's that one? That was awesome.
You know, that was real. Yeah, that was really good.
That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's what I want people to remember. I don't want them to remember, you know, the match that I had with Roman, because, you know, I was all beat up. I was working on a bad hip. I was out of shape. I looked like bloated Elvis. You know, I mean, it's just, that's what I don't want, you know.
So let me ask you this, and be 100% honest. When you're putting out The Last Ride, how much of the decision to agree to that project and to put it out there was like, well, if I do this, then I can't come back? It's almost like blocking an ex-girlfriend, being like, well, if I block her, then like she's definitely gone. Like, we won't get back together. Like, how much of that was, I would love to still get out there during WrestleMania, but if I put out this basically retirement documentary, then like,
it's like a stamp on it.
That's an extra, like, I can't go back.
That is a great question. That is probably one of the best questions that anybody's asked me. And
hell yeah.
It's believe me, it was in my thought process.
Yeah.
Because, I have a whole group of people like, no, well, you can go out and you can do this and people are going to go crazy and they're going to love it. Well, on the inside, I'm thinking, I don't move the way I used to move. I can't do things the way I used to do. It's a watered down version. But I also love this business so much. And I've loved performing for 30 years and, 33 if you count before WWE. It was almost like I needed somebody to, put the bullet in there and stop it. And so it did. Once we kind of started rolling with this, it did, that was kind of in the back of my mind. Like I can get to a point where this will solidify it and where I won't have a choice.
Right.
And that's where I thought, and originally that's where I was at until somebody watched, I had to send the last 15 minutes of the last episode, to the chairman. And needless to say that.
He said that was good shit, pal.
No, he didn't say it was, he did not like the ending at all.
Oh, interesting.
No.
He didn't like that you put the stamp on it.
Yeah. So that's where, we put the line back in there, never say never. But here, I'm coming to grips with it. Obviously as we get closer to March or April, whenever it is this year, I'll have that internal feeling like I should be getting ready for something.
Yeah.
But
maybe like run a triathlon in April or something.
No, negative.
Before we get you out of here, I want to ask a few questions, just some of your favorite things throughout your career. So I have a list of favorites. What was your favorite entrance that you had throughout your career?
One of them definitely is the when I rose from the bottom of the stage and it's backlit with all the smoke and then all the demon arms and stuff are coming,
that was my favorite for me. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, that one I thought was really cool. There were so many. I mean, those were such big productions, and the fireballs and all of that stuff. I mean, there was just some really iconic entrances, but I think that one probably is one of my favorites, just for cinematic value.
Such a great picture, right? Like that silhouette shot of all the arms, you with the coat on, the hood on, so badass
29,
looking.
right?
Yeah.
So I almost, this is going to be something that I might regret admitting. I almost got that tattooed across the back of my shoulders.
Almost?
Yeah. I mean, I'll do it now if you want me to. I'll do it. Because that was 2013. I was poor, so I can afford to do it now. But back then I was like, all right, I can either do a half chest, half sleeve, or I can do that across the back. So I did the half chest, half sleeve. Now it's a full sleeve. So now I can go across the back.
Well,
although, wait, you know what? I actually have an open spot right on my elbow here. So either I can do that silhouette or I can do the Undertaker logo on my elbow. Which one do you want?
Brother, it's going to be there a long time.
I mean, hey, you know what?
If it's
I would say since 97, that's a pretty long-term commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, man. That elbow can get kind of tight with the. I mean, you can put something there. But.
Yeah, something has to go there anyway. I mean, it's an open spot, so I mean, if it's not the Undertaker symbol, it's going to end up being like one of like the Pink Floyd The Wall logos.
It'll be like a Kane mask, and you want the other brother destruction on there,
right?
So here's a question: we've heard the stories of ribs about cucumbers brought it to the room with you and all that. What is your favorite rib that you experienced in your time throughout the WWE, WWF, entire career?
A rib that was played on me?
Just a rib that you experienced. Could be on you, could be on someone else.
Oh, man. There's so many. And some of them weren't even that elaborate. I tell you who was one of the greatest ribbers of all time is Owen Hart.
Yeah.
We hear that a lot.
He was so good. I could spend an hour going through ribs, but It used to be back in the day, in the early 90s when I got there, we really only got a real, like, more than a 3 or 4 day break around Christmas time. We might get 5 or 6 days, and usually meant we left on Christmas Day to go work somewhere.
Yeah.
So that last show before our break, you never took your eyes off of any of your gear. You locked everything up. I remember we did a TV taping. Vince was there. JJ Dillon was the head of talent relations at the time. I mean, the Nasty Boys and British Bulldog. I mean, they took Vince's coat, filled it full of shaving cream. They took, I want to say it was JJ Dillon's briefcase. They somehow or another tied it up at the top of the ceiling so you couldn't. I mean, it was just total mayhem that last day, right? And you just, like, a lot of guys would actually get dressed, like, to go to the ring, and then take all their street clothes and all their personal belongings out to their car, lock them in the trunk. Yeah, it was.
There's such a fear of what the pandemonium would bring.
Yeah, you knew it was coming. It was just a matter of trying to, make sure you didn't get got, if you would.
Yeah. All right. I got one more before we get you out of here. It's one more favorite question, and it has nothing to do with wrestling. What is the Undertaker's favorite movie?
Black Hawk Down.
Oh, interesting. You're a war movie guy. You like war movies?
Yeah, I love war movies.
You had to pick like a genre, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And sports, sports biographies and stuff like that. But Black Hawk Down, because it kind of started right from the beginning. I mean, they get into it, and it doesn't let up until the end. So, yeah. And it's based on a true story. And 13 Hours is also good. And now and what's that?
We Were Soldiers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mel Gibson. Yeah, that's another good one. That just once it gets going, man, it doesn't let you up.
All right, that's just something I've always wondered. Just like, what is the Undertaker doing his free? What is he watching? What is he putting on TV? What's he going out to the theater?
Were you expecting Friday the 13th or Halloween?
No, I'm not one of those guys. All right, Taker, thank you so much. This has been an honor and a pleasure for the both of us. Don't forget, WWE Battlegrounds is out now. Go get the game. It's an arcade-style wrestling game. Going to be a ton of fun. Undertaker's in the game, of course, obviously. And we'll catch you next time.
Absolutely, guys. Look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.